Hey guys, welcome back to Refuge TV. So glad that you're with me. We're going through Genesis. We've been looking at going through doing devotionally thoughts through the book of Genesis, and we actually find ourselves in chapter 47 and 48. And so the brief devotional thought that I will leave you with is we've been looking at the life of Joseph. We're actually going to pause on that and kind of shift our focus over to Jacob, Joseph's father, because that's where the narrative kind of leads us to. And so we're going to be looking at how Jacob finished his life as a pilgrim. What does it look like as you're following God and you're sojourning with Him to understand what you've been doing as a follower of God? And yet, when you come to the point, the end of your life, how do you finish? And we're going to watch the next few chapters how Jacob finishes his life. And I think it is important for us to consider that, not just how we do in the midst of the beginning of the race or the middle of the race, but at the end of the race, are we getting to that finish line? And how does it look in our life? I think that's so important to consider. But if you look with me, Genesis 47 shows in verse 9, Jacob said to Pharaoh after he blessed him, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage," referring to Abraham and Isaac. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. Now, if you go to verse 28 of 47, it says that Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. So we have a 17-year span. And the reason why Jacob ends up in Egypt was there was a famine. Joseph was concerned about his family. He ends up having them bring Jacob. They have this awesome reunion, and Pharaoh allows the people of Israel and his band of people to come and live in the land of Goshen. And so it says that they grew and they multiplied there. God began to bless them. There was a 17-year span. And then we see in the next few chapters that Jacob will talk about not just the end of his life, but he thinks back to God and God's faithfulness to him. And he thinks about his life. And I'm not going to recap all of Jacob's life because, as we've been talking about, there's a lot of ups and downs, twists and turns. He struggled with his faith at some points, and he had strong points of faith, and he saw God's faithfulness in his life, and the grace of God, the mercy of God, the love of God, and we saw these intersections of Jacob and God, and just Jacob's growth as a man, and God changing his name to Israel, governed by God, being coming from supplanter, heel catcher, and all these things about Jacob. But he talks about in chapter 48 in verse 15 and 16, which I'll get to in a moment, about the faithfulness of God as he looks back. And so that what I wanted to talk about in this brief devotional is all of us that follow God are on a pilgrimage. The Bible talks about this body that we're in, the body that you have is a tent. It's a temporary dwelling. And I've always told my wife and my kids to keep the tent peg shallow. Be open to where God would want to lead you, because we are on a pilgrimage. Don't ever grab too tightly to the things of this world. And so the way that Jacob describes it's so important as a Christian that we understand that there's so much more to life than the physical things that we can touch and have, and the things that we chase after, and the career opportunities and all these things. As wonderful as those can be, nothing is more important than having myself yielded to God. And my life is an open-handed, God, here you go. I don't have anything apart from you. You are everything to me. And Jacob saw his life that way. He is a pilgrim. Obviously, his family was promised land the land of Israel, and that would be fulfilled later on. And that's just a lot we can go into there, but let's read. It says, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked. He's blessing Joseph and his sons. And this is what he said. This is an incredible line from his blessing. The God who has fed me all my life long to this day. The angel who has redeemed me from all evil. Bless the lads. Let my name be named upon them. In the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac. And let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And I won't get into, because Jacob lays his hands on Joseph's sons, and he does it in an order that Joseph doesn't think he does. It's out of order, and it actually plays into the plan of God and all that. But so putting all that aside for just a moment, we have a quick devotional thought on this. That Jacob, talking about his pilgrimage, sharing that with Pharaoh, into the next chapter, he shares this blessing, and he remembers, he's thinking back, the faith of Abraham and Isaac before him, the God who was faithful to them, who covenanted with them and was good to them, the Abraham, the altar builder, the one who worshiped God and was a friend of God, and Isaac, who was seen meditating in the field in the evening, a man of deep thought, deep conviction, his dad. And here's Jacob, an old man, sojourner. He's in a land that's foreign to him, and he doesn't know why he knows why he's there in the sense of, to survive the famine, but why am I a pilgrim here? And none of us understand like where we end up in life, but yet God is faithful. And he says, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day. He talks about the faithfulness of God, the goodness of God. And, that's the crazy thing about life, is sometimes things happen and we don't understand, and we get frustrated, and we are often thrown off by circumstances, and we begin to question God's goodness, and we keep trying to figure things out. But as a pilgrim, we need to step back, and like Jacob here, I love that he's thinking about the God who took care of him all the way through his life, the God who watched over him, that cared for him, tended to him, and was with him. So that's the moral of this devotion, is just to talk about life is a pilgrimage, that God is good, God is faithful, God is just, he is with us, and we need to remember that, like Jacob, that he is with us. Even when we can't see him or don't sense him, he's there.